Welcome to Transforming and Thriving
with best friends Brooke, Stacie, and Nelia.
Podcast dedicated to women sharing their inspirational stories. Hey there, everyone. We are so excited to be here for another episode of Transforming and Thriving. I'm Stacie.
And I'm Brooke. Today we're joined by an inspiring woman whose journey includes building a thriving career, stepping away for family, facing serious health challenges, and finding her way back with a renewed perspective. Dr. Jen Moran-Kobes is an AACD cosmetic and general dentist in Chicago. She founded Water Tower Dental Care in 1997, growing it into the city's premier practice for cosmetic dentistry, a success that even led to her being featured multiple times on the Oprah Winfrey Show. But at the height of it all, she stepped away to raise her 4 children and eventually faced a health battle she will share more about with us. Now, with a profound new lease on life, she has returned to her career dreams at Water Tower Dental Care and Hinsdale Dentistry.
Dr. Jen, we are so incredibly honored to have you with us today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, thanks for being here. On a personal note, my dad was a dentist for his entire career, so I was excited to have you on. You're our first dentist that we've had on the show. And we're so ready to dive into your journey. I know you had this incredible premier career, and it sounds like life asked you to pivot in a major way. To start us off, can you share with us a major transition or life event you experienced that marked a before and after in your life?
Sure, there's probably quite a few. I feel like I've lived so many different lives and had so many different chapters. I think a good one to start with would probably be when I decided to sell the practice that I had grown, and really my career had taken off and was doing more than I had expected. But as my twins, I had had one daughter in school, and then I had twins. And then 20 months later, I had another child. So as my twins were growing, they were about in first grade, I realized there was something different about these two compared to the others. And one was ADD and one was ADHD. And I really thought, I've got to be the one to be home. And it just became clear. And as hard as it was, I turned to my associate who had been a partner and said, "Hey, do you want to take over the whole thing? I think it's time for me to stay home." And it was that easy. So that was a big pivot. I immediately hired a life coach thinking I would fall apart because dentistry was so much a big part of my identity. And then I stayed home and I had the most unrelenting bosses ever.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Kids are the boss.
That's right.
What a difficult decision, but yet probably meaningful one to make for your family at that time. Can you tell us a little bit more about, the decisions and then kind of what that looked like for you to kind of take on that new role?
Well, at first, I really approached parenting like I did the practice. I had a schedule. I had these lofty goals of our day with play dates and educational games and activities. And I would be the room mother and, do all the activities with the kids all the time. Well, slowly but surely, it became very clear that this motherhood thing was not going to run as smoothly as the practice that I could manage. So it took me a while to kind of find my rhythm with the kids 24 hours a day. And it was exhausting and it was messy and it was rewarding and wonderful. And I was really, really grateful that I got to be the person. But there were many days where I wished I had a nice hot cup of coffee all day long and somebody else was cleaning up the messes and somebody else was managing the schedule. So it really forced me to become a different human being in my skin.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. So you had twins, and then you said 20 months later you had your third?
Another child, yeah. On their
Oh
first
my gosh.
birthday, I found out I was pregnant again.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
so it was 3 under 2. So it was 3 high chairs, 3 car seats, a triple stroller. I always had one in the baby Bjorn. It was a lot. Plus I had my older daughter, so she was 11 when the twins were born. So it was all
Oh
of
my
the
goodness.
activities and driving her to school and then 3 little babies at home.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a complete upending of your life and just figuring out how to negotiate getting everyone to all the places and keeping them alive and healthy at the
Yes.
same time. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I have one who's almost 5, so I just yeah, I can't imagine. Kudos
Yeah.
to you. But what was the hardest part for you in that whole transitional period?
I think the hardest part was really feeling like I lost myself. You become kind of secondary to everybody around you essentially. So 4 children, they've got to come first. So your sleep, your health, your social life, your personal care, all of it becomes secondary. And I was no longer really a dentist. I was no longer Dr. Moran. I was just mom. And all day long, I was mom, 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 mom. So I think if you sat me down at the end of a day, I would be happy that I had the opportunity to care for them and that I did the best I could. And there were days where I would say, everybody's alive. That's the best I could do today. Everybody's alive. I wasn't really prepared to do it. I wanted to do it. I didn't really know how to do it. I didn't know how exhausting it would be. I didn't know how at the end of the day there would be very little, yes, that went well. That could be better. I've met my goals. None of the things that you do to kind of measure your success are there with parenting. It's just a constant survival with an attempt to thrive. And I think that was the hardest part was that mindset. Who am I without the dentistry? Besides, there was moments you think of yourself a little bit like a servant to everybody else.
Well, I hear that from so many, whether it's my family members, my siblings who have kids, and, particularly the mothers and my friends. And now I'm very new to my journey into motherhood, and I can already relate to that of just navigating, the who am I. So I can only imagine you moving from this huge career selling your business to shifting into this other very meaningful priority, but yet still struggling with your individuality and your autonomy because they're
Yes.
so attached and need you so much. And the role that you're in, you are their primary caretaker. So, as I said, I really relate to that, even though I'm very new to my journey.
You're in the hard part, one of the hardest parts of the journey.
I hear there's so many different phases for sure of the hard. So,
Yes. Yep.
but like you said, you also said it's so rewarding, and I think for us as women, and I'm sure men might experience this too, of just juggling the guilt too of I feel these feelings, but now I feel guilty for feeling these feelings that I would like to have that cup of coffee all day long.
Right.
Because I want to be there for them, but it would also be nice to have a break.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned self-care and that's a big hot topic for women, just especially managing so many different roles in their life. What did that look like for you? There was a mention of a health struggle that you also faced. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And is there a link to kind of your self-care and, your health challenge that you experienced?
Well, yeah. So luckily that came later when the kids were very independent. So right when my twins actually were going off to college is when I decided that I would start the process to go back to dentistry. My youngest was 17. Or maybe she was 16 at the time. She was a junior in high school and driving. So it really felt like there was a lot more time to focus. So I started the process to go back to dentistry. And in the midst of also going through a divorce, I found out I had breast cancer. And that really changed again my direction and my trajectory and really makes you quickly reprioritize what's going on in your life. And you must put yourself first for a little while. And the kids understood. It was hard to say, I'm going to miss that choir concert. I'm going to miss that play. I'm not going to be able to come to Parents' Weekend. I may not make it to that big ball that you've got. That was very hard to do and very unlike me. But this became so important that everybody understood, but they still felt it. They still felt that, oh, mom's not here. Mom's got something else going on. Even though they were scared and they were worried as well, it was a definite change for everyone that we did not expect.
What was that like for you, like in the early stages of finding out that you had breast cancer? It sounds like you were going through a lot at the same time. You were finding out you had breast cancer, going through a divorce at the same time, and then also trying to parent your children and show up for
Yes.
yourself and them. Like, I mean, what was that whole initial stage and maybe the middle part of that journey like for you?
Well, I'll tell you, there have been these times in my life where there appeared to be some kind of force guiding me. When I bought the dental practice, it was really kind of a dilapidated 1970s practice, and my accountant and my attorney both said, no, run from this practice. And I just had the strongest gut feeling that, nope, this is it. This is the right place for me. I'm going to do it all against all odds. And I did, and it was successful. I mention that because the next one I'm thinking about is before I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I just had the strongest feeling that now was the time. The marriage was over. It was time to move on and get out and just stop playing games. And there was going to be no therapy. There was no chance for him to change the situation. And it was just this overwhelming feeling that it was time to do it. So I went ahead and I filed for the divorce and all the fallout that happens from that right after. And a few months later, I found through my oldest daughter had said, "Are you giving up on love? What's going on next?" And I said, "No, I'm not giving up." And she remembered that when she was very young, I had dated a guy that I met right out of dental school. We lived together. And she said, "What's he doing now?" And I'm like, I have no idea. How would I even find out? And of course, she's in college and she's just like, well, Instagram, and she instantly finds him. So I start dating him. It's a long story to get to the answer. And we start dating, and it's instantly right back to where we were in 1995. So we're dating for about 6 weeks. And about 6 weeks in, he says, "Whoa, what is that?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I've had kids. Everything's different." And he's like, "Nope, that's something." And he's a banker. He's not a doctor. So I go to my friend who's an oncologist. She's a radiologist, and she does the testing. And she's like, "It's probably nothing, but let's do this biopsy. It's probably nothing, but let's try this. It's probably nothing, but let's send it out." And it was breast cancer. So I'm telling you that because these strong feelings that have pushed me in a way that I couldn't even explain have led to situations that were unexpectedly wonderful, that I should be grateful for. The practice thrived beyond anybody's expectations. If I had stayed in the marriage and my ex-husband was the person that I had to go through cancer therapy with, my life would have been torturous. He did not have the ability to handle that or to be a nurturer or to accept that at this moment I needed to be a priority. And so somehow I, with the right timing, got out of that and into a relationship where when I called him and said, "Hey, it's cancer," he's like, "All right, we got this, no problem." We're dating for 6 weeks. This is not a long-term commitment at this moment. He's like, "We got it, no problem." He went with me to the doctors. He went with me. I went to Mayo Clinic because I wasn't really thrilled with the doctors here. He was by my side. He took notes. He asked questions. He made jokes, that he gives free exams. He's got 100% batting rate. And it was the perfect situation in a very bad scenario.
Wow, that's amazing. It was like divine timing. And you
Yes.
talked about this at multiple times in your story so far,
Yes.
as well as just trusting your gut and trusting like you said, this like powerful feeling or pull to
Yes.
make a decision. And I love that. You took that as an opportunity to kind of show you what was next. And also, you mentioned it was a long story, and we love long stories to get to the answer. So it's perfect, everything you're saying.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm so glad that sounds like you had the support of your new partner, you had your kids that supported you. What would you say were the hardest parts of getting that diagnosis, and how did you navigate that?
At that moment, I think everything shifted. I had my moment of, okay, this could be really bad, and let's gather the facts. I think a lot of my life, I do try to regulate my emotional response with gather the facts. There's no need to respond with all the what ifs and what could be. Let's just figure it out first, and then we can respond and react. So the conversation with the kids, I think I kind of let it that way too. I'm like, here are the facts that we know, and we're going to continue to learn more and understand what needs to happen next. And they were scared, and they automatically start with the, well, what ifs and what does this mean and what's going to happen? And, they can catastrophize a little bit, but you try to, regulate that. And then I proceeded to take care of business was kind of how it worked. We had just gotten a new puppy, and with all of the doctor's appointments and the kids all being occupied and two being away, it was really not something I was going to be able to manage with all the potty training and initial training. So I did put that puppy in a 30-day boarding school. So he had training, which really worked out best for everybody. The dog got well trained, and we could figure out what this therapy and treatment looked like for me. So I went to multiple doctors. I'm here in Chicago. I've got Northwestern and University of Chicago, Loyola, University of Illinois. I went to a few different doctors, and I think because of the way I choose to practice, really listening to the patient, giving good eye contact, treating them like human beings, I was really frustrated with the medical system here. I had one chemical oncologist that just sat with her face in the computer with her back to me, barely speaking loud enough that I could understand. And I even asked her at one point, I'm like, could you turn around and look at me? I'm hearing impaired. I'm not going to be able to understand you. And she was so annoyed with me. And then at one point I said, wow, that sounds really rough on, a young woman for the rest of her life. Young, I was 50. But she just looked at me so annoyed again and said, you'll be alive. And I just thought, you know what? You are not the people for me. This is not the kind of care I would give, nor do I want. So when I finally called the Mayo Clinic on a recommendation from a friend, the systems there were so much better. I did have to fly to Minnesota. It was multiple appointments. I did have to leave my family. The puppy was in boarding school, and I got the answers and the attention that something like this requires. At Mayo, they talk to each other. It's not, now you have to take this piece of paper and make a phone call and try to get an appointment with the next guy. So I was off doing my own thing. And when I would get updates, we had a family chat and we would all talk about it. And I'm sure my oldest daughter, who is a researcher and a spreadsheet maker, was taking all the data and doing all of her research and was all over WebMD. And we all learned more than we ever wanted to know about breast cancer. But I would say all of them, at least to my face, took it all in stride and wanted to be there for me. And really, all of the attention switched, for all these years. So really at about 30 years since my oldest was born, I had been a parent and putting the children first, and all the focus was on them and what they needed and how to succeed. And even when I was practicing, myself became second, right? And now all of a sudden, not only am I first in my mind, I'm first in their minds too. So even though, again, it was a negative thing having cancer where all of a sudden you have to realize life is short and is a real focus on priorities. It took something like this to understand that, wait, mom's a human being. She's a person too. She has needs and wants beyond us. And I think that that lesson came faster for this family than it may have without the cancer diagnosis.
Wow. Yeah. It sounds like, you had this period of like, it had to be the main focus. I'm curious now looking back, what do you think your children would say about what maybe they learned from this process or what helped them or how they grew from it?
I think they would say they quickly realized that mom being there is not something you can take for granted. I think that children in general, are very egocentric, as they should be. They are the center of the universe, and parents do make them feel that way. I certainly did. I probably spoiled and enabled their self entitlement and self importance. And I think that this lesson of, hang on a second, mom's not infallible, right? She's mortal. And what is our role in mom's life and caring for her and thinking about her? And I think overall it made them more empathetic human beings. I think that they also got to see that life is short. Right before that, in February, so about 9 months earlier, their grandmother passed away, who they were very close to. So they already had that sense of, wow, grandma always put us first and never took care of herself. Not took care of herself, but never put herself first. And now mom is going through this. So I think it did cause them to take a moment of pause and realize that everybody has a role in this life and that everybody nurtures others at times, and it's okay to receive as well. I would guess it would be interesting to ask them what they learned from this process, not something I have ever asked them. And I would guess it's different, the youngest at 17 and the oldest at 30. It's a big change between the kids in timing and their maturity levels. I think that the overall lesson of life is short is certainly what stays with all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that they learned so much from watching your strength, and the way you guys work together as a family is beautiful. I'm obviously sorry that you guys went through that, but it seems that it really helped you guys grow together. And also, you guys are demonstrating such resilience throughout this whole process. For somebody, whether it's a family or an individual going through a diagnosis of cancer, what advice would you have for them to kind of stay positive and stay connected with their family or their friends?
I would say be authentic, get the facts for sure, but don't be afraid to express that you're afraid. It's okay to say, this is really scary. And I know that you're thinking of all the things that could happen. And yes, there are scenarios where this could be very bad. So let's gather our facts, fight the good fight, do what we can do, be there for each other. And at this point, there's nothing we can do to change it. So let's move forward and fix it. I remember my dad immediately was like, oh, well, you must have gotten it because you wore deodorant, or maybe it's because of that chemical processing plant that's, 3 miles away. And everybody wanted to figure out why it happened. And at that moment in time, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all why it happened, how it got there. I don't think it was my fault. Maybe I'd had too many diet sodas in my lifetime. Nobody knows for sure, but let's just move on from that and take it from here. The advice would be just be real, but don't catastrophize. Don't let your emotions take over. Feel them, respect them, lean into them even, but let the facts lead it, perhaps.
I love that advice. And I mean, just so poignant for so many people who are going through any sort of like a major health issue or, honestly, many other like traumas or changes in their lives. I'm curious to hear just what life is like for you now. Where are you at now with your cancer journey and just life in general?
Wow. Well, I guess it must have been the end of 2019 I was diagnosed, and then in 2020 I was treated. Since then, it is now newly 26. I have moved twice. I have had 3 children graduate from college. I have gotten married. I have gotten 2 more dogs. I have returned to dentistry, but when I started to reinstate my license, they said, "Now you have to reboard." And at that moment, I was just taken aback and, "What don't you know who I am?" And I'm a big successful dentist, and I had Water Tower Dental Care, and I've been on the Oprah Show, and I was a little put off. And then I thought, "Okay, to get whatever you want, do whatever it takes." And it's been a while, and they want me to go back and take the clinical boards. I'll do it. I'll take the written boards. I will study. And I just did whatever it took to get whatever I wanted because I felt great. There was a new emphasis on my health and my nutrition and my vitamins, and I got a concierge physician and was taking such good care of myself that I thought, I've got a lot of years left to do whatever I want. I was painting sets, which I had started when the girls were in musical theater. And I was just the mom that was helping out, and that's what they needed. And I didn't know how to do it, but I knew that I could learn. So I started helping with set design and painting sets. And then I was hired by a local theater, and I was doing that. And I broke a finger. And as I was doing that for, no money at all, just enough to barely cover the expenses, I thought, why would I sacrifice this hand that has been trained and I've put all that time and effort into educating myself? Why don't I just go back to that? So that process was a long, hard process to go through. And at this time, my oldest 2 were seniors in college and my youngest was a sophomore. I didn't know how closely they were watching, which is really one of the themes of parenting is that they are watching you. They are watching when you think that they are not even coherent of what you're doing. I did the whole thing while my daughter was planning her wedding, brought the girls with me to some of the times where I had to go to different dental schools and take the clinical boards, went looking for wedding dresses with my oldest in New York. And at the end of all that, I went back to the practice that I started and said, "You guys have the right to first refusal. I'd love to come back here. There's nowhere else I'd like to be." They said, "Yes, come on back." And then they're just, unfortunately, a cosmetic dentist right here in my town where I live happened to pass away. And I must have had 10 of my friends call and say, "You have to go there and help them." And it took them a while to get back to me, but I did go there and observe. And while I was observing, they said, "Oh my gosh, can you just jump in?" So now I have 2 good jobs, and I work almost 5 days a week. I work 2 Fridays a week. It's more than I worked in my heyday. And in the process, so the youngest, who is getting her degree in molecular biology, who says she wants to be a genetic counselor, at the end of all that after graduation, she says, "I wanna go to dental school. I think I wanna be a dentist like you." And she said watching me go through the boarding process made her decide to do it, which I think she's the only human being ever on the planet who said, "That looks like something I'd like to do," because the boarding's really, really hard. But she did, and so now I have one that wants to go to dental school, whereas before there was nobody that wanted to go. And then I can picture this new future of her coming and working with me and building something even bigger and leaving a legacy. So I would say right now, today, my life is better than it's ever been. Cancer is not even a footnote in my daily life. I do enjoy every day for the most part. I have moments that are hard, right? I have moments where I'm tired. I have moments where I think, gosh, nothing I did went the way I wanted it to go today. And then I do stop and say, you know what? It is a privilege to be able to do this work. I really do. I tell myself, don't stress about it. You are choosing this. You don't have to do this work. You're choosing it. You're lucky. You're in the best practices you could be in. You're doing the best dentistry you can do. The kids are all happy and thriving and out of the nest. So everything is really as good as it can be right now, despite all of the negative obstacles I had to overcome or just get through to get to today.
Wow, I am smiling ear to ear. I know you can't see me right now with just hearing that update and where you're at. And I imagine you are smiling right now. I can hear it in your voice. And so many would get discouraged and maybe even give up at any of those junctures that you've described today. And, I just really commend you for all that you had to go through and how you handled it. And the fact that your daughter saw, oh, this like really hard process to become a dentist. And she's like, yeah, I want to do that like my mom. And even to do
Yeah,
it again, and you saw that as, okay, challenge accepted. I loved what you said. You said, forgive me if I butcher it. I think you said to get what you want, do whatever it takes.
right.
Um, it's so simple, but it's really powerful. I love that. It's very, very inspiring. I really appreciate you sharing everything today. And I want people to be able to find you. What would you say the best ways to find you? Maybe an Instagram, website? What could we
So
share in
they're
our
both
show
the
notes?
same. So I think that, yes, my website is drjenmoran-kobes.com. So DR and then Jen Moran-Kobes, Moran, no hyphen, Kobes, Kobes. And from there, that will get you to either one of our practices. My Instagram is also Dr. Jen Moran-Kobes. I think. I think it is. It could be just Dr. Jen Moran. Those are both good ways. I am also on Facebook. It's kind of the same information on both.
Great. Okay, we will put all of that in the show notes. I have your website. I already had that. So now everyone knows where to find you. Thank you so much for just not only your transparency, but just sharing for you the positive side of such a difficult journey. I mean, you went through several major life transitions and stressors around the same time. And just to hear your strength and how you came through all of those on the other end, and just being real and honest about, like, there are always going to be periods where you have your moments, right? We're human.
Yes.
But I think that's something that everyone can relate to. So I really appreciate you being here and sharing your story with us. I think a lot of people will be able to connect with at least, one piece of it. I mean, there are several things that you shared that I think are very universal to so many women. So yeah, I'm so glad that you are here. Thank you for everything you shared. I hope that things continue to improve for you and your health is great and you have all the happiness and health in the world. And I'm so happy that you got remarried and it sounds like your career is thriving. Everything it sounds like is thriving now
It really
because of
is.
you.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. I think that, the takeaway is maybe no matter what you're going through, if you trust that the universe will care for you and trust to kind of what it's telling you, that really helps. I think if you just trust that there is good out there for you,
Mm.
even when it's really looking bleak.
Such a good reminder. Thank you for that.
Of course. Thank you.
To all of our listeners, thank you for joining us on this episode of Transforming and Thriving. We'll be back with more inspiring stories on the first Monday of each month. Please follow us on your favorite podcast app and follow us on Instagram so you can be a part of this community and stay up to date with each episode. Please feel free to leave a review so that we can get your valuable feedback and other people can find these powerful stories. Check out our website as well at transformingandthriving.com. We're all in this crazy life together, so let's move through it together. See you there.